Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of Cool People. Now, over the last couple of years, since coming out very publicly as being trans and then doing trans awareness training and public speaking about trans issues and media appearances, I've met a lot of amazing people because I've often shared the stage with people. And my guest today is somebody who I was speaking alongside at an event in London last year. And he's an amazing guy called Mik Scarlet, who I actually had the misfortune to follow him because he was absolutely brilliant. And afterwards, I was thinking, oh no, I can't match him. It was absolutely fantastic. But anyway, I'll tell you a little bit about him. He does many, many things. He's a journalist. He's a broadcaster. He's an inclusion consultant. He's also an actor, a singer and musician, an all-round good guy. And he's also just finished a contract working for Network Rail as their access and inclusion manager as well. So he's got many strings to his bow. But anyway, Mik, welcome.
Hello, Katie. How are you? All right.
Hi, yeah, and thanks very much for taking part in Cool People. You are the epitome of cool people. You are a very cool person.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I know that many people would possibly disagree, but yeah.
So yeah,
I don't quite know how to follow that one, but yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey and
yeah. Well, I was born a long time ago now, in the mid-60s, and I was born with cancer. And at that time, the cancer I had was pretty impossible to cure. In fact, it was about 98.4% terminal for everybody. And I was very lucky. I was put on a drug trial, and my doctor had to fly the drugs across to England from America, where they'd been tested on monkeys. So it went, monkeys, Mik. That's basically how my life was from then on. But and I was very lucky it worked. So I was one of the first people to survive this cancer in the UK, and I'm about the 5th oldest person in the world. And we all meet up on Facebook every now and again and go, oh, has this bit dropped off you yet? It's about the joys of getting old, but you know, we never know if it's because we're just getting old or because we're old and we had cancer, but it's fun. And that really led me to start a kind of journey, because it left me paralysed in my right leg. So I was able to walk, but not able to walk well. And it meant that my parents had to fight to send me to a mainstream school. And I was the only disabled kid at my school, infants, junior, senior, and I kind of got used to fighting for things to be better because no one really knew what to do. So they would always say, well, what should we do to make it better? And I'd have to tell them. And then when I was 15, the morning after I went to see Gary Newman perform his farewell concert at Wembley Arena, when I should have been studying for my German O-level, I woke up. Naughty boy. I woke up and said to my mum, I don't feel very well. My back really hurts and my leg's still weird. And my mum thought I was trying to get out of going to school. So she sent me to school in a taxi. And when I arrived, I collapsed at the feet of my geography teacher, who I can still see as I looked up from the floor going, you're all right, boy. And I wasn't. So I was rushed to hospital, and it transpired that my spine had collapsed in my sleep.
No. And
so that led to 9 months in hospital, lots and lots of stuff, surgery and all things. And then I came out a wheelchair user. So a big adjustment to life. And that was really, I mean, it sounds strange, but that was the beginning of making me who I am today. Because up until then, I'd been quite a good boy. I'd been very studious and I wanted to rebel, but my parents kind of went, no, get a job and do it small. You know, you're a working class boy in a working class town, you're clever, so get a job. And I'd got lots of these great job offers, which was pretty amazing for the early 80s. You know, most of my friends were gonna, if they were lucky, get a little rubbish job, and I'd been given, you know, as trainee manager roles and all, you know, kind of jobs that were going to go somewhere if you were a working class boy. All of that went. All my friends disappeared, everything, and I lost pretty much everything. I had to rebuild my life. I had about 2 years where I was trapped at home. So this period isn't that new to me. The idea of being trapped at home for a few months. And I taught myself to play music. I'd always wanted to be a musician, but my music teacher at school said I was tone deaf. So I disproved that by I bought myself a tiny little drum machine. My mum and dad had bought me a hammer, like a little Botempi organ. One of those Christmas presents that you get when you're hoping synthesizer and it's not, it's an organ, and you have to go, oh wow, thanks, it's great.
A moog.
Yeah, it's not moog, it's a boog, yeah. And anyway, so no, I actually did. It was brown, and I got it all black so that it looked cooler. That took a long while. So I taught myself to play, and that led to doing music. When I finally was well enough to go out, I started doing gigs in bands. I formed a band with my best mate that I'd made at college, Richard, and Matthew's brother, the new romantic electro duo. And that was the beginning of what turned out to be the kind of life that I don't think many non-disabled people could ever dream of. You know, yeah. I started doing music professionally. I went on tour with Gary Newman, who was obviously a teenage hero of mine, lots of other bands. Then I got spotted doing a gig by a TV producer who offered me a screen test. And then I went into doing television, and I spent 30 years working in television. I won an Emmy. Yeah. I got a BAFTA nomination, but I got beaten by some, I can't remember what it's called now, some drawing program, IEV Bath. I was on Channel, so, you know, Channel 4, darling, we were very arty back then. It's kind of, and then that led on, you know, like you said, acting. I basically, I got asked to appear in all different TV shows because I was the only disabled actor with an equity card under the age of 30. So it's nothing to do with talent. Anyone that's ever seen any of my acting will ever say, well, Mik's quite a good presenter for an actor. He's not a good actor. I've since studied, so I think I'm probably better now, but back then I was kind of, hello, I was in Brookside. Yeah, that was, I've got that on VHS. I'm never encoding it, ever, because no one is seeing how bad it was. Hey, Bammy, is that the Easter Bunny outside your window? Which is one of the lines that was etched in my brain because it was so weird. Oh,
brilliant.
And so then I was getting, I had a really great career and everything. And then in 1999, I was involved in a car accident and I broke my back again. Because I do like being disabled. I was definitely destined to be in a wheelchair. So the problem was that they test to see if you're paralysed. They kind of go, do your leg, you know, if you have a car accident, they check your back. If you can't move your legs, then they know you've broken your back. If you already can't move your legs, they don't notice it so readily. So it took them 3 years to discover that my back had been broken, which meant I just got iller and iller and iller. I couldn't work as hard in the industry. Television's quite a hard job to do. It doesn't look it, but it's quite demanding, especially when I used to do lots of magazine shows. So you're going all around the country and you're kind of, hey, today I'm getting on a boat. Tomorrow I'm climbing up a mountain. You're always doing things. You never just, it's not like the news where you kind of go, hello, I'm sitting down for a living, which is a job my mum always thought I should get because I bring my own chair. They all stand up and walk around now, so they've ruined it. But back then it was a possible job. So it meant that my TV career really shrunk and I kind of disappeared. And then I finally found a surgeon that thought he could fix me. And he did it by completely dismantling my spine. It took my spine apart. Wow. And replaced it with metal. So I am now Wolverine from the bottom of my chest to the top of my hips. It's all metalwork. It's worth about £250,000 in scrap, apparently. So I've always said to my wife, I don't need life insurance. I just need to make sure that when I go, shake the urn Because if it doesn't rattle, it's not me, and you want to get the bits out because they're yours. That's your retirement fund.
I bet you have fun when you go through airport security, don't you?
It's titanium, so it doesn't go off. I've got a load of fridge magnets, and when I come home, I'm going to put fridge magnets on my back and do a party trick. And stuff dropped off. I was like, but ferrous metal had rust inside you, so. Yeah. But and then because that kind of ruined my career. I mean, it took about 2 or 3 years to get over again. Another period of, that was when I spent 9 months in bed at home. So again, we're back to this, a few months stuck inside. So I then started focusing on this inclusion stuff. I'd always been passionate about disability politics, but when I tried to rebuild my media career, it just wasn't going to happen. I was a little bit old, I put on a bit of weight, and there were lots of new, young, much cheaper people around. And so,
as well, isn't it? And the television is very fickle. So
it's funny because it's a weird industry where they like the word new talent in front of something, this new person we discovered. And so I wasn't new, but I wasn't remembered by a lot of people in the industry because there'd been a long enough gap for me to drop from their memory. It's funny, most people who work in television don't watch it. So unless they've seen you or know you from something else, it doesn't twig. They haven't seen you do anything.
Okay.
And because I come from the period before the internet, so lots of my stuff is actually on VHS. So, and in the time I was ill, the internet took over. So basically, if you weren't online, you didn't exist. So it meant that there was no way of finding out who I was. So I kind of vanished. It's one of the, lots of people from my era disappear. They're coming back now. Yes, hoping. Maybe soon my day will come. But so I went into this equality stuff, and I trained to be an access consultant, which is working in the built environment, so designing buildings. And then I worked with a wonderful woman called Margaret Hickish on the Paralympic Park, and I was working more on the training of staff and the running of the park when it was open, and she designed the access features. But she saw that I had a knack for this, and that I had my television presenting skills. So she offered me a job working for Network Rail as an equality trainer. And that's where I started doing the stuff that you saw me do when we met. And that was great, and led on, and I did it, and I got bigger and bigger and more sort of better received, more jobs, more work. And then about 8 months ago, I saw an advert for Network Rail saying we're looking for a access and inclusion manager to cover someone's maternity leave. And I thought, well, I know all about Network Rail because I train their frontline staff. So I applied for it as a joke, really, to practice doing interviews. Yeah, I didn't think I'd get it. And it was the worst interview I've ever done because I turned up, they said, come with a presentation. So I turned up with it on a USB key, and they didn't have a computer, and they meant print it up.
Oh, no.
So instead, I acted out my presentation. The next slide is all orange, and it's saying, and I got it.
Oh, well done.
And it's been a kind of revelation for me because I did a lot of work around disability. That was my thing. And while I was employed at Network Rail to focus on physical and systemic access for disabled people, it meant I also did a lot of other stuff. So I've done, we just rolled out gender neutral toilets at Network Rail's offices. And there's lots of work around that, lots of work around increasing the representation of the BAME community, lots of representation around empowering people who are gay to feel that Network Rail is the kind of place where you could come out. And of course, the promotion of, I worked in a predominantly female department, and trying to make sure that's something that an industry like the railways, that's a very engineering type job, is thought of as one that women can do as much as men. And it meant I got a new insight into how much we've got in common.
Yeah.
people think disabled is one thing and BAME is another, and gay, and we're all in our little camps. And actually, the experience that we share is of exclusion, of discrimination, and of a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
So that people's stereotypes really colour how they think about you. And that's, I think that's something that we all need to work together on to make things better for everybody, because we can all learn tricks from each other.
Definitely.
So that is my potted history.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks, that's about as quick as I can tell it.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you, Mick. Yeah, I totally agree with you, because I think, if we can be supportive of other people who also suffer discrimination, we can be allies to each other. And I think, just like talking at the event that we were talking at, there were several people with lots of different stories and all our own personal journeys, and it was just fascinating listening to everyone. And we're all coming from completely different backgrounds, and it was a real eye opener. I found I really enjoyed that evening. It was brilliant.
It's funny because I teach something called the social model of disability, and what that says is people tend to think you're disabled if you're broken. I can't walk, so that must be why I'm disabled. But what this social model says is, well, actually, no, that's called an impairment. I have paralysis. Yes, great. But what disables me is I live in a world that's shaped for people who can walk. So I am in my chair. I am probably faster and more comfortable because I have a 250-pound memory foam cushion. So I'm the most comfortable person you will meet until I go, say, up to a flight of stairs. And then suddenly I'm disabled by the society and the shape of it, rather than my being physically different from people who walk. And what's funny is that really applies to everyone. A lot of the stereotypes that people have around people that causes them to discriminate is because they believe something about a group or a person that isn't true. So it means that it's not intrinsic to you, it's intrinsic to the society and the teachings and the way they think about you. Yeah. And it's why it's so hard to be different. Because we're all facing this avalanche of rubbish, and it's like, why do you people still think this stuff?
You can say it, Mick. It's okay. You can say it.
And it becomes, and it's funny because when you're disabled, lots of it is physical. It is stairs and lifts and signage, and it's very difficult to get people to understand that actually that's the same as people thinking you're able to do less, or you're worth less, or that you're inferior, or that there's something about you that's uncomfortable or strange. And I think that also, I think when I try to explain this to lots of groups that aren't disabled people, they get a bit offended. And it's like, well, it's not, being black's not like being disabled, you know. It's like, no. I'm not saying what you're doing is you're misunderstanding the word disabled. There's nothing intrinsically bad with being disabled. It's not, while it sounds less able, disabled, we're made less able by the world around us.
Yeah.
I don't feel anything other than, to be honest, I feel superior to most people. But I don't feel inferior because my body doesn't work like it's meant to in a textbook.
Yeah.
I think that, but I'm made to feel excluded.
Yeah.
And that's the same, you know. There are lots of people that believe that all these different groups are inferior or whatever, but actually that's a myth. And it's all to do with, I believe, to do with fear of losing power.
Yeah.
However powerless you are, if there's someone below you, then you can feel better about your own status. Not understanding that actually, if we all came together, we could all get more control over our lives, and also be happy with our own quirks.
Absolutely, yeah.
I remember when I was sort of a young new romantic, you know, we used to go out to gay clubs a lot. Most of my friends were gay. And I discovered I wasn't. There was I didn't feel any big issue about being straight or not. But what amazed me was the reaction of lots of straight people to my gay friends. And it was like, the only reason you're afraid of them is because you're really scared you might be gay, and you don't want to be gay because you've been taught it's wrong. There's nothing wrong with them. It's your problem. You're the one that can't cope with your own reality. And while that is very bad if you're gay because you're in a world full of people that are treating you poorly, it's actually really bad for all the people that are hung up on this as an issue. Yeah. The idea of growing up hating who you think you might be because of the fact that you've been told you don't want to be that thing is awful. Yeah. And I actually, I remember when I was young having friends who felt like that. They were like, I think I might be gay. And then they went out and they got married and they had all their whole life. And eventually some of them reached the point where they finally came out to themselves and admitted the truth. And it was like, how sad was that they couldn't do that when they were young?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I suppose it's a similar sort of thing with me. I mean, it took me 48 years to admit to myself that I was trans. And you've heard my story, but I've always had gender dysphoria right from the age of 3 or 4. So it's always been there. But the gender dysphoria increased, say, when I was 48. So but even previously, when I considered myself as just a cross-dresser, and when I didn't realise I was trans, but even then, it took me many years before I would actually admit that to myself. I mean, it was, I was in my mid-20s when I finally admitted to myself that I was a cross-dresser. Before that, but before then, there was a lot of self-hatred and loathing, and I didn't want to admit it because I'd been brought up to know that it's a bad thing. It's you shouldn't do it. It's a naughty thing. It's a dirty thing. It's horrible, and so every time I did it, it felt right, but then I felt all these feelings of disgust and self-loathing. It was horrible, and this vicious cycle just went on and on and on. And then finally, in my mid-20s, I admitted to myself that I thought I was a cross-dresser, and then it was like a whole weight lifted off my shoulders. It was great.
Yeah.
And of course now, so 2 years ago when my gender dysphoria increased dramatically, and then finally admitted to myself I was trans, I didn't want to admit it to myself I was trans. I didn't want to be trans. Nobody wants to be different. You want to fit in, don't you? And I had a nice life and everything, and I had so much to lose by it because obviously, as you know, when I told the story, there are so many losses with this thing. God, I mean, it's such a hard journey, and so nobody in their right mind chooses to be trans. But I was one of the lucky ones that I was able to admit it to myself relatively quickly through various different the routes that I went through. But where some people don't, and they just you see it, and it's awful. And it's so sad, and a lot of people come to me because I'm getting a bit better known now through what I'm doing. I often get trans people come to me for a bit of support, and typically they'll come to me and they're in a state of self-denial, and they don't want to admit it to themselves, and they sort of how do I stop it? How do I stop it? Said, you can't.
You know what? It's funny because there is. I really think there's a real commonality between the experience of disability and the experience of being trans, because we are both in that position where we're in the wrong body. Do you know what I mean? You're not meant to be disabled.
No.
And the difference, I think, is that the only way to be happy if you're disabled is to admit that your body is the one you're stuck with. And I think that if you're trans, then it's kind of more changing other things and accepting that and breaking out of the conventions of the body you've got. Do you see what I mean? Whereas we have to accept the convention, the limitations of our body. And you want to say, no, I'm not going to accept the limitations of my body. My body is mine to do as and I'm going to be as I want. I'm going to be as happy with it and live the way I want with it. And I think that's where we join again, because I think that I know I became really happy with being disabled. The more happy I got with the body I've got and what it can do and what it can't do. And I think that journey is the same. You're going down the same road. You might end up in a different place, but you start in the same place and you end up happy. And I think that's it. And I think that's what we need to do, is give people the skills to go on that journey. So whether they, when I was a teenager, punk was kind of on its way out, but it was still quite in. And we used to go to a local pub in my hometown of Luton, the Blockers Arms. Hello, everyone that went to go there. And there was a guy there who, it was quite an awful thing to see. And looking back on it, it was really bad. He was a mixed race guy who had been adopted, and the mum had died, leaving him in the tender care of an absolute racist. And this guy had grown up to kind of become a racist. He'd adopted all of his adopted father's sort of hatred, but he hated himself. And he had a swastika tattooed on his forehead. And it was just the most, and we used to go, but you're black. And he'd go, yeah, send them home. What? And he'd go, yeah, me and all. And it was like, and I always remember that as the embodiment of how, let's face it, your parents really fuck you up. But also that you can turn your hatred on yourself. And, I think we come from communities where we've seen that. Like I said about my gay friends, I remember lots of the people that we would run away from because they would be out looking for puffs to beat up. And then later on in life, you'd bump into them in gay clubs and they'd be like, that's why. And I think that when you're disabled, people are so scared that it might happen to them, that they internalize it and then let it out on you. And they don't want, and it's why you'll get things like the Paralympics are so, aren't it great? And it's great because it's almost like, well, this is what you'd be like. If it happened to you, you'd be off winning medals, because obviously you're winning so many medals now when you're not disabled. That, God, the moment you lose the ability to walk, you'll be racing marathons. Of course you will. But and if you try to like at the moment, you've got lots of stuff happening with this coronavirus bill and the withdrawal of care for lots of disabled people. We won't be resuscitated, all stuff like this if we get it. And we're all trying to publicise this to say that this needs to be understood. That like someone like myself, I might be 54, but I'm really fit, I'm really healthy, I'm no more susceptible to the COVID-19 than anyone else. But if I went into hospital, there would be decisions made about my ability and my life based on my wheelchair. And if people say, oh no, that's not true, I've just spoken to my spinal specialist, and I always have to remind him that I'm married, that I'm happy, that I have a great job, that yes, I live with chronic pain. My nerves are trapped, so it hurts. But I don't mind that. And lots of doctors can't get it because they want to make you perfect. And when they can't, they see you as being broken. And because they also see people at their lowest. So when you go in, you're ill and you're in pain and you want it to stop, and I have to tell you you're never going to walk again. I haven't walked for 40 years. I don't dream walking. I can't remember walking. I have no concept of it. So the idea of not walking isn't bad for me. So I would go into a hospital hoping that they would see the person, but I know that they would see the wheelchair and make judgments based on that. And we're trying to get that out there. And yet we don't want to know because it doesn't go with their narrative. It doesn't go with the idea that the NHS will care for everybody, that society is better than it is. And I think that's another reason why excluded groups face so much aggro. Yeah. Because we remind people that they aren't the great people they should be.
Yeah.
And so we always end up having to be nicer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, people are being dicks, and we're like, ha ha ha, oh, well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Why not? Ha ha. And if you do that, then they go, oh, there's no need for that. I was only being polite. I was only being nice. And you're like, you weren't. Trust me. I know what nice is. This isn't it.
Yeah.
And I don't even think some people know they're doing it.
No.
I know we went, I live in a block, and we were trying to set up a residents association, and one of our neighbours, Naomi, was going to be our treasurer. Naomi is a very strong, confident black woman, and she's fantastic. And we went into the bank, oh, sorry, your appointment doesn't seem to be down. The bank manager isn't here. And we all got a little upset because we'd all taken time off work to go.
Yeah.
And the girl behind the counter turned to Naomi and said, if you're going to be like that, then you're going to have to leave. And we went, because we'd all been.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of us that had been slightly more moody than Naomi had. And it suddenly dawned on us that what we were witnessing was unconscious bias.
Yeah.
But this girl had decided that out of all the people who were all white except for Naomi, that the person who was being the most offensive to her was the black person.
Right.
And it was shocking to me that you think you've seen it all, and then you experience something from someone, you see for a fleeting second, you see through someone else's eyes.
Yeah.
And then you realise that, geez, this is what they do every bloody day. All the while, every day, that's what they face.
Yeah.
And then you realise that this girl wasn't, marching down the street wearing a swastika. She was just biased towards Naomi because Naomi was just, she was afraid of her more than us because she didn't feel like as much in common with her.
Mm.
And it's just, it just really shocked me, and it really made me, it was another one of those moments where I, got quite passionate about working in the field of inclusion because, I've faced people being afraid of me, people being hostile about me and all that, but I've never faced anyone being hostile towards me because of something intrinsic to me. Do you know what I mean? People are the pity you get a lot of, you get a lot of misunderstanding, you get a lot of, but you don't get a kind of hostility. I used to dress like a punk. I still got the hair, thankfully still hanging on to it. But I did know, I used to wear all leathers and studs and stuff, and people got out of my way when I was in my chair. And as I got older and calmed down.
Was that anything to do with the knives on the sides of the wheels?
Yeah. Well, I've always thought, might be an idea. I've always wanted to put, like, one of those things you get on the front of, like, cowboy trains.
Oh, yeah.
Cow pusher. Then that'll get them all out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
But I noticed that as I got more casual, more normal looking, less people got out of my way.
Yeah.
And people would walk into me more. And it was just how strange that. So I was adopting that sort of fear element in my clothes to make my life easier. But then I can turn it off. Imagine what it's like to never be able to turn it off.
Yeah.
To always have to be either, oh, don't worry, I don't mind you being hideous to me all the while, or if you point it out, you're just uppity.
Yeah.
And I just think, and I think that, I hope that after all this, when we're all finally let outside the house again and can meet in person, that society learns. I hope it grows a bit and says, look, we now know what it's like to feel trapped and inside and out of control and full of fear. Well, actually, that's a lot of what it means to be excluded, whatever reason you are excluded for.
I agree.
Build a better world.
Mm.
Might happen, but then who knows? I
think it might. I think well, let's be optimistic about this. I think it might. I think it's certainly it's taught us all a big lesson. I think about the world and how we treat other people, and it's lovely to see people doing favours for people and sort of putting cards through doors, sort of saying, if you have to self-isolate, we'll do your shopping for you, and all that sort of stuff. It's just really nice, isn't it, to see happening. So yeah, I'm hoping that we all learn the lessons of this. I certainly will never take our previous life for granted again. Just in
never go for a coffee, granted.
I know. Just
my wife used to take us every day and say, look, because we work from home, she'd go, let's go out for a coffee, and I'd be, oh God, all right. Now I'm like, I really want to go out for a coffee.
I tell you what, I really miss hugs. I'm such a big hugger. I hug everybody, and I just really miss hugs. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm more of a misanthrope, so I'm not suffering this too badly. I love people, but you couldn't eat a whole one.
Yeah, in small doses. You know what I mean? Which no one would believe, because I'm quite a sociable person. But, I also quite like being away from people. So Although I am kind of starting to get a bit, we've got it all planned. That as soon as we all get out, we're just going to go back to our youth and start going out, say, on a Thursday night, and then just not go home until Sunday afternoon. See where the winds take us, because that used to be my life pretty much solidly until about the age of 40. So
40.
Yeah, no, I started in my late 20s. I used to go clubbing a lot before, but in my late, when I got kind of famous on telly, I really took advantage of it and really had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then didn't stop, because I then kind of made it my job. So I started DJing, and then I started promoting clubs. And so then you end up, you're in your club, but then you go to another club to promote the next club, and then they invite you, and then you end up going back to someone else for a party, and then it's another party. And, you know, eventually you stagger home, collapse, sleep for 2 days, and then start it all again. It's great. Yeah. And I've grown up a lot since then. But we've all said, right, when this is over, we're all going to go back and enjoy the crazy that we used to have. Of course, I think at my age, I'll probably take a little bit longer than a couple of days to recover now.
So, I hope you've written a book, Mick.
Do you know what? Years ago, I got asked to write an autobiography, and I wrote it. But this fun period that I'm talking about does mean I have quite a lot of trouble remembering large chunks of it. So I wrote it in a kind of weird way, in that I didn't write it in the chronological order. Yeah. I wrote it in like, so I'd do like TV and music, fashion, whatever, all the bits I've done. And but that's great, but it kind of, it's a bit of a weird read. And I sent it to a proofreader who came back and went, it's great, but there's a couple of chapters where you just repeat yourself a lot. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably because I can't remember what I'm talking about. Trying to remember the 3 things that I did. And I'm like, so I've got to go, what I've got to do is go back and reread it. I might just start again and write it all over again. Yeah. I think the thing is because I did it in my 40s, and I think that's a weird time. In you're kind of not, you're not young anymore, but you haven't, like, I know when I hit 50, I kind of realised, because I always thought I'd be dead by now. You know, I find cancer and spinal cord injury. I mean, my dad died when he was 35. Ooh. So I thought I wouldn't outlive him. It seemed obvious. So I lived at full speed. I mean, full speed. And then when I hit 30, I met my wife. Which is kind of annoying, because I was thinking, oh shit, I was getting ready to say goodbye, and now I've fallen in love. But then when I hit 35, I thought, oh, maybe not. Then I had my car accident, and it looked like I was going to die, and then I didn't. And then when I hit 50, I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to die. I'm going to live to be really old. And it's a real, like, most other people hit 50 and think, oh, I'm going to be dead soon. And I hit 50 and thought, shit, I might have another 40 years. So I better start growing up. So everyone else goes out and buys a sports car, and I went out and got a job in Network Rail.
So what's old Mick going to be like then?
I honestly, probably very much like all the other Micks, to be honest. It's going to be a combination of very grumpy and very happy. I mean, I'm very lucky. I've got a wonderful wife who...
yeah, lovely. She's absolutely lovely.
Yeah, she is great. And she kind of gets me. Yeah. And she knows if I'm left alone, I will happily stew in my own juices for a very long time. So she kind of prods me to go out and do stuff, and then I kind of remember that I like doing that. But she's also very passionate about lots of sort of social justice things. And because I found this whole period recently quite disheartening. You know, I about 2 weeks ago, when all the lockdown was declared, I went to bed on a Saturday night, and when I woke up the next morning, the coronavirus bill had withdrawn the Care Act, the Mental Health Act, and another equality-based law, as well as some rules of habeas corpus, so you can be detained for 12 days, not 3, and all this kind of stuff. And then that morning as well, NICE declared that they were saying that if you scored under a 5 on their, function chart that they've got, that they weren't going to resuscitate you. And it meant I went to sleep with all these equality rights that I fought for, and I woke up and they'd all gone.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I can't believe that society has dismantled everything so quickly.
Yeah.
So I kind of lost heart a bit and kind of got a bit kind of, well, sorry, I'm just going to go off and paint or do something stupid. Art, man, I'm going to follow my bliss. But then she kind of got me back on track and reminded me that I need to fight for this stuff. So we did, and we got the nice thing overturned, which was quite
brilliant.
good. Nothing like being able to overturn a ruling by a major national government body without being able to leave the house. I mean, lots of disabled people have campaigned for a lot of the rights that we've got, and they did it by going out and doing direct action and chaining themselves to buses. We did this with social media.
Yeah, fantastic.
Which is an amazing thing to have done. But still, you know, kind of, I'm still a bit concerned the way that people are all sort of accusing each other of going out too much. And look at that couple over there. They look like they're having a sunbathe. And do you know what I mean? It's just sort of, yes, it's really scary, and yes, we've got to stay in and all this stuff. But I think we've got to also admit that, you know, I live in a flat with no balcony, no garden, no nothing. So if I don't go outside, I don't go out for exercise, I don't get any fresh air, I don't get any vitamin D. And I know that has an impact on me because I have been stuck in this flat for prolonged periods when I've been ill. And one of the things that happens, I get dangerously low on vitamin D. Yeah. So people do need to go out for their health.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's getting the balance. You know, if you've got a garden, great, go in your garden. If you've got a balcony, great, go on your balcony. But don't judge others. Let's be sensible about this. Let's stop. Hopefully we'll get through this with as minimal number of deaths as possible, and everyone will come out the other end and will grow. But we've also got to stop pointing the finger and going, you're not doing what I'm doing. Because we're back to what we were saying earlier, aren't we? You don't live the way I live. You're not like me. And it's like, yeah, that's what makes the world great. Yeah. As long as no one is stupid, as long as no one develops a cough and then goes out and coughs on people, as long as we have enough social distancing, we're going to come through this all right. So let's stop panicking. Let's down the fear a bit and up and raise up the hope. Yeah, I genuinely think, you know, I mean, you watch telly, you know, you see these people just completely freaking out about this, and it's like, look, yes, it's scary, but it's no more scary than normal flu. Yeah, really.
I've stopped watching the news so much now. When it first started, it was like on like constantly. It's just the news, and it really depressed me, to be honest. And I had a terrible week. The first week of it, I was just in a right state, and luckily my friends got me through it, and I'm feeling so much more positive now. And it's definitely helped doing these recordings of cool people. It's such a positive thing to do because it's me just chatting to my mates basically.
But you know what though, I think it's really unfair because one of the things that no one's considering is the people that are having issues with their mental health. You know, we've got a really great mate, and she has issues, and she goes out a lot to help her deal with that. And she goes out all the while, she socialises and art events and everything, and she can't go out, and it's really, really affecting her. And it, you know, it can't be that we let one type of illness beat some people to stop another type of illness beating some people. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be a rounded approach. And I do think that the news at the moment is just everything's going to be bad and it's all awful all the while, you know, and so much so that the Queen going on for 3 minutes and going, don't worry, we'll all get through it, chaps. And everyone's like, oh my God, it's the nicest thing I've seen for weeks. It's like, that's because the news and all of the programmes have been so focused on the horror of it without saying, you know, like this morning I tweeted around a thread by a virologist all about the exact how this all functions. And it's like, where's that? I know it's really difficult to understand, and I'm lucky I studied biology at sixth form, so I have a rough idea about how these things work. I was going to be a medical social worker, but unfortunately Margaret Thatcher sacked them all just when I got left. Thanks, Maggie. Nothing was great about her. But anyway, so I've got all the training to be a nurse, but the uniform, I like them on people. I don't like them on me. But that's a whole other thing that don't tell anyone. But like the information, if we had information that was that gave us an understanding of what's going on, we'd be able to be more sensible about what we do. We'd understand why we need not to go out, for example. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that awful meme that you've seen, if we could see the virus, and it's a New York street, and it's just covered in giant virus balls. And it's like, if you could see the virus, there'd be one tiny virus load on a door handle somewhere in this giant, it'd be like, where's Wally? Right? And it just means, the reason why they're saying don't go out is because you might be the poor sod that touches the handle, touches your eye, catches it, then you give it to someone, you don't develop it for 2 weeks. So you carry on going out, you touch another handle, they touch, and it's just that. Because it's only every one person might give it to 2 others, maybe 3. So it's exponential, but it's not like you're going outside and as soon as you go, that's it, you're doomed. And I think that, and again, it's back to the fact that fear is a great control mechanism, isn't it? You know what I mean? You know, if you have gender-neutral toilets, then of course, all of a sudden, there's going to be all these male rapists out there running around raping women, and it's like, well, then they won't, but they won't be trans, will they?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like all the people that go, oh, you know, all those people with blue badges parking everywhere when they can walk, and it's like, yeah, but then they're not disabled, are they? You know, all these people on benefits that are disabled, those scroungy disabled people, if you're on disability benefits and you are disabled, you're entitled to them. The only people that aren't entitled to them are non-disabled people who are fraudulently claiming them. So therefore, you're judging my community because your community is shit. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, stop doing this. Stop blaming us because the majority are looking for ways to be shit.
Yeah.
We want to go to the loo or park, or, you know, and we want to be able to do it without living in fear or whatever. And yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. You are a really happy person, really. I
am, yeah. It's always underneath.
One thing that really struck me actually from the speech that you did was that when you said that you're happy being disabled, and
oh yeah,
that was the big thing that really struck me, and I thought, yeah, good on you, and I never heard that before, and I thought that was such a powerful.
Well, see, the thing is, I'm very lucky. I mixed with quite a lot of political people when I was working in television. I worked for a department called the Disability Programmes Unit at the BBC, and it was filled with lots of people just slightly older than me that were part of the disabled rights movement that had got that really fought for everything. And they taught me all about the social model, but they also taught me about disability pride. The idea that there's not anything wrong with being disabled. Actually, if you examine what it's made you and what it's given you, there's something to be proud about. And I think I was lucky. I was brought up by an amazing mum who taught me that I was, like I said, that this is where this superiority thing comes from. She genuinely told me that I was better than all the other kids at school because they hadn't had all the things that I had had. And, you know, that I'd fought for all this stuff and how amazing that was. And as a kid, when everyone else is telling you you're broken, but your mum tells you you're brilliant, it means that you do really well. Well, my mum's wrong and you're all wrong, obviously. And seems I'm better than you. Obviously, you think that, you know, that I'm rubbish because you don't want to admit your inferiority. So there's always been that kind of thing underneath. And so, you know, whenever I've been ill, I kind of always known I'm going to get better because that's what I do. Whenever the chips are down, I've always known that I'm going to overcome because I do. And that's because I'm disabled. So I am proud of it. I'm happy. It's given me an inner confidence that I really don't think not being disabled I would have. And also it's given me lots of chances and experiences.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have done music if I wasn't disabled because I wouldn't have been ill when I was 15. So I'd have gone straight into a job. Yeah. I probably would have gone into a job like my dad's. I'd been in the factory. Yeah. You know, my life. I regularly think about what my life would have been if I hadn't been disabled. And I kind of see a mirror of lots of my friends back in my hometown who just live normal lives. I look at my mum and my dad and I see their life. And while that's fine, it wasn't what I wanted, but it was what I would have had. And I would have been deep down unhappy, but I would have kept going. Yeah. Whereas having all that torn away from me because I became paralysed meant that I had the opportunity to go out and build a life that I wanted. there's still stuff that annoys me. You know, I mean, I don't like not being able to get into shops, and I don't like going to cinemas and having to sit in the one wheelchair space and all this kind of crap. But that's stuff I fight to change. But the actual life I have is amazing. You know, I've done everything. There are moments I can't exactly explain because my wife might watch this, and some of them are a little bit before we got together. But there are moments in my life that I think about when I think about how amazing my life's been. But you think that they would be in, you know, those rock and roll kind of autobiographies where you up surrounded by groupies and a bag of cocaine. I've had moments in my life like that people who are non-disabled would read and go, "Oh, that must have been great," and I had it. You know, and I had it because I was disabled. You know, I got into television. The guy that spotted me was doing an item on the annual race around London where you get someone on foot, someone on a bike, someone that uses public transport, someone in a taxi and someone in a car. It happens every year, and it has done for decades, to try and prove that public transport is better than cars, that bikes are better than this and that kind of thing. And they wanted me to report on it. And they thought it would be funny to have me pretend to take part. So the wheelchair got me the gig. Because if I was on foot, he wouldn't have gone, "Oh, no one's..." And he actually generally said, "I was thinking I'd be able to shoot through your wheelchair as you wheel down the street and it will look great." So he mounted the camera on the chair and shot through my legs. So it was all that, do you know what I mean? So that break was because I was chatty on stage, but also because of my chair. Yeah, and you know, and then I went and did a documentary for Channel 4 about disability and sex. Well, you have to be disabled to do that. Yeah. So you know, and it meant that my life went the way it went. And I know that lots of other disabled people don't have the luck that I've had, and I know it is luck, but I think that's what I spend my life fighting for. I want disabled people to have the same sprinkling of luck that I had, you know, and I want them to be able to grow up. I want young disabled people to grow up and be able to think, "You know what, I'd like to be a rock star or a TV presenter or whatever," and it not be a silly idea. Yeah. And when I said to my careers teacher, careers officer at school, I wanted to work in a recording studio when I was 15. I can still walk, but I walk with a limp. He went, "Oh, you couldn't do that because you need to walk up and down stairs carrying tape, because you need to be a tape boy first." And so I couldn't do that. So I had to get a job in a factory. And it was like, and that's what most disabled people face. They face being told they can't do something because they're disabled. And I'm just really lucky that becoming more paralysed led to me going into a world where they went, "Well, you know, maybe it's an idea. Yeah, we'll go with it. Let's try." I can see the tail. No tail. Hello, cat. Don't bite. No bite. Hello.
I said it might happen. He announced himself. He came into the room just now, and I could hear him. And I thought, "Somebody, be quiet! Oh, it just bit me. The bugger!" You know it happened.
I love it.
I knew it's happened.
Yeah, you see, you warned me. You see, this is why I don't have pets.
Do you? Oh, dear.
So I didn't need that finger.
Oh, dear. Well, thanks ever so much for
Well, thank you very much for having me. That's a very good point to end, I feel.
It wasn't it?
I didn't establish by my cat. Anyway, have a nice life. Bye.
Well, I think we just lost the thread. I think he's just sort of put the kibosh on it.
Yeah, I do think that these things naturally have an ending, and I think that was definitely it.
I think he'll have to appear in all these films now. Just come and pick him up and just end.
Well, you need to build a little kind of shelf to your left, right, and it just sit there looking evil, just staring at you. No. and then when it pounces is when it's over.
That's when it time's up.
Right. Okay, that's it. The cat has said that's enough. It probably wants feeding.
Yeah.
They ignore you until it's time to feed them, and they're like, "Oh, hello."
I know.
I used to have a cat called Decibel because it was such a it meowed so loudly that you could hear it from everywhere, and it would ignore me all day until I was about to go out, and then it would come and rub itself up against my chest. Yeah. And I was always in black, and it had a pure white flash up the front, and it would just leave all this white cat hair on me and then bugger off.
Yeah. Oh,
and then I'd clean myself off and then it'd come over again. And then I remember one time coming home and it had just gone mad in the house and smashed it all up.
Yeah.
So I went, right, out. And I shouted at it and made it go out, and it went out and then it ran away.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
2 days later, I hadn't found it. And then one night I was sort of sitting in the garden and I heard this, meow, meow, meow. And it was the cat. And it was in a forest, across a field, across a main road. And I had to get in my chair and wheel across this muddy field and get into this forest. And go, come on, with its favourite food.
Oh.
Come on, come on. And it got it on my lap, and then I had to wheel back across this field. And that's the only pet I've ever had.
Oh,
So much bloody work. So after that, I've just got a wife. And on that note, I'll leave you, and then I'll get in trouble when she sees it.
You will do.
Love you, Diane. Love you, darling. Thanks so much, Kate. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, Mick. And you are such an inspiring person. You really are. And
just going to say, please never use the inspiration about a person unless you're inspired by what they do. It's one of the big ones about the disabled people say, right? Say because what it is, I think, is we get it a lot when people go, oh, you're so inspiring. And they don't know what it means is sort of, I don't think I'd be as happy if I was you. And the thing is, most people, I think people would if they're given the right circumstances. So, like, if you feel inspired to do music when you see me sing, if you feel inspired to be a TV presenter when you see me present, or if you inspire to think, well, he's a confident chap, I must be more confident. That's cool. But it's something that disabled people get a lot. Is all right. Here's an inspiring person. You think, so what is it that inspired you? I know I am, because I'm just a ball of wonder. But it's really weird. I mean, you must get it too when people say, oh, you're so inspiring, and you kind of go,
yeah.
What is it about me that's what have I inspired you to do?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is the word means inspiration, like inspiration to action.
Yeah.
So if you're inspired to change, it's great. But if you mean, well, my life's pretty shit, but it could be worse, it could be yours, which is how a lot of people say it when you're disabled, you kind of go,
you're inspiring.
I can give you a whole lesson on the language of disability, but I won't, because, you know, let's face it, we had drawn to an end, and otherwise your viewers will all just go,
I'll get the cat in again.
You can just cut it there and then go. At which point, Mick went off on a rant.
No, but you are inspirational because your personality and your outlook, and you know, you're a funny guy, and you know, it's been a
it's funny, because I think the thing is that sometimes, because we get it used so much, but actually sometimes people genuinely mean it and we get upset with them. And it's something that happens a lot when you are a minority, is you find that you get annoyed with sometimes the wrong people for them. Because, and it's funny, when I do my training, I tell people, I say, look, you as a customer-facing person will occasionally get someone who is disabled or whatever be funny with you. And it's not because you've done something wrong. It's because the world has done something wrong over and over again, and they just happen to be in a really bad mood.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, language is one of those ones I think that can do it a lot. You can trigger, can't you? It must happen with you, that people use things, that words and language that makes you get, and you suddenly think, why did I get angry over that? That really didn't matter. But you just do. Yeah. And that's why we have got a career. Because we go around telling people how to get it right.
Absolutely. And I think that's it. It's all about education, isn't it? And I think
and that's why I think that
we both.
If we don't spread the word, then people will. I mean, this is, you know, we're back to that fear thing. People are afraid because they don't know about you. Then all of those preconceptions creep in, and you end up living a world. You live a life where you're not happy because you don't understand how wonderful the world is. Your world shrinks because you're afraid of things. And actually, you know, whether it's being a different ethnicity, a different sexuality, a different gender, whatever, a different ability, actually your life can still be wonderful. And if you aren't any of those things, your life can be wonderful by accepting and understanding more people. because the more colourful and wonderful and rounded and varied life is, the more amazing the world can be. You know, it's a bit like if you imagine food that is predominantly just British, and then all of the influences that have come from around the world to make our food wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit like life is like that. You could have, you know, a kind of dull, badly cooked Sunday roast for the rest of your life. or occasionally you could have a pizza or a curry, or, you know, and even if you don't like a pizza or a curry, you know, you could have a little sprinkling of pepper, which is another thing we didn't have, or, you know. So anyway, I'll stop rambling. We're at that point again, you said. Okay,
we're at
that point. Like I said earlier, I will keep talking. So as soon as you want to call it bed,
just right. Okay. Well, the cat's on
his
way.
You get that, don't you? You get that. You get okay that, and then you get 5.
Yeah, and then you get a shepherd's crook coming. Ah.
And that's it.
Thanks so much, Mick. And thanks everyone for watching. And please catch up again on the next episode of Cool People.